Hey, what's going on, everyone? So, this conversation was kind of triggered a little bit by a tweet I had earlier from someone who follows me. I follow them as well, but it's not just about the tweet because this is something that's been affecting loads of us for a while. But I'm not sure where I'm going to go with this, but I'm just gonna talk, and we're gonna see what comes out of it. But when I was working in an independent video game store, called the Software Store. This was during the era of the GameCube, the PS2, and the Xbox in terms of home consoles. I have very vivid memories of dealing with not just customers, but also the general overview of that era in terms of thought, mentality towards gaming and those consoles in question. One of the most common things I remember was one of the biggest reasons why the GameCube didn't sell, as well as it should have, I suppose, and also one of the biggest reasons, arguably the biggest reason, why the PS2 sold the numbers it did, and that was the PS2 and Xbox both. They both had DVD players, but of course the PS2 was the console that pushed those sales the most due to it coming out first, and Microsoft only just entering the console market, trying to play catch up later on. But for many people, no matter what games were listed or shown, the fact that the GameCube didn't have a DVD player was a massive turn-off. And there's no doubt that every time that became a reason for another GameCube not selling in the shop, the more it got under my skin, and the more I could confirm that gaming had started to go down a path that I didn't like. I would stand there and debate with customers how the GameCube is a pure gaming console with no distractions or things that have nothing to do with gaming, but it just being a great game console with many great games for both first and third parties, and they should buy it. But nope, a clear, decisive number of consumers wanted the extra fluff, and I hated those things. I hate that those things stopped great games from being played. It was no longer just about the games now. People wanted more from their consoles, and many times that had nothing to do with gaming itself. But outside of the multimedia and non-game related things that are now part of most consoles in varying degrees, there are of course many things that are game related. Most of these things being online connected in some form, or unique to a system that helps enhance games or provide services and access to old and new things. Every console is now online and has online stores. Many give you some sort of access to games from previous generations in some shape or form, and will carry over your saves across generations. Many of these things being prevalent on PC for decades, up to the I suppose thanks to the ever rolling nature of that platform as a gaming platform, I suppose. But even then, many of these things are still young on consoles, and the guarantee that everything will carry over through each generation is never 100% guaranteed, especially more so in regards to Nintendo and with the Nintendo Switch. A system that has almost entirely restarted on everything from a multimedia and service perspective that Nintendo's previous hardware started to build on. If I listed what we've lost from previous Nintendo hardware compared to what the Switch has now, people would instantly understand how the Switch, since the GameCube, is the most bare bones system Nintendo has made in terms of system features and just additional features. Which takes me back to my original comment about how people shunned the GameCube because it didn't have a DVD player. Yet here we are, after the commercial failure of the Wii U, with the Nintendo Switch looking to be one of the best-selling consoles of all time, and obviously for Nintendo. Yet, compared to everything else on the market and compared to what Nintendo offered before, the Switch is more of a games-only machine than anything else. There's really not much more you can do on the system apart from play games. But here we are, 55 million consoles after 3 years, and was seemingly a complete U-turn on the old GameCube mentality from the consumer base. But of course we know there are other more controversial reasons, which mostly fall into the looks and cool factor of a platform. That plays a heavy role, along with the marketing direction and how consumers react to things, and these have plagued Nintendo probably since the N64. But the Switch is different, right? The Switch looks cool. The Switch marketing is or was cool, and it has the big draw factor of being a hybrid console. But what I want to highlight, but I want to highlight some important things about the Switch. One, the games haven't really changed. Nintendo are still making the same level of quality games as they have always made. That hasn't changed for the most part, at all. Save for the few odd titles here and everywhere, it always happens. And two, as previously mentioned, the Switch, in terms of system features and multimedia, is as bare bones as it comes in terms of a modern system. These lack of system and multimedia features have created a rift in the Nintendo consumer base, and has completely flipped poles, I feel, especially in the gamers and YouTube and Twitter space, which I frequent, along with you all who are listening, and everyone else. You have the consumer base who scoffed at the Wii U, now championing the Switch as the Crom tier console to own, and you have the dedicated Nintendo fan base, grumbling at everything that has been lost from the past. And I'm now one of those people, and this has shocked myself a little, because I realized that in part I want more than just the games from my consoles now. But in my defense, the more I want or expected on the Switch had everything to do with games, because that was still Nintendo's focus, who has yet to I suppose release a console with a DVD or Blu-ray player, and probably never will. What we lost was Miiverse, arguably the best and most unique piece of gaming-related system software to be created. The Virtual Console, Swap Note, Street Pass, a camera, which was on both the 3DS and the Wii on the Wii U, and yet it was used for games. Messaging and friends invites, video chat, a theme shop, like on the 3DS, activity logs we mentioned before, backwards compatibility, and I tell you, around the Wii Connect 24, which included things like everybody's votes and the We Speak channel, which actually let you leave voice messages, which is cool at the time. Yet none of this has all these things which are gone has not affected the momentum of the Switch. And for me, it's been quite surreal, playing on such a system that has so little compared to what I've been used to from Nintendo, at least been building up since the DS and Wii generations, the touch and motion control generations. I think the Switch's success also fills me with a wave of, if I'm being honest, contempt for the gaming market that has adopted it, compared to what they decided not to adopt previously. Perhaps it's the old Sega Dreamcast mentality in me, of a great system, with loads of great features, like the VMU and online and all that stuff, ditched, because they were no longer the cool kids. I always wonder, what would have happened if Sega succeeded, with the Dreamcast. Definitely a video for another day. Absolutely, I will do that. But what would the Switch be like if the Wii U had succeeded? Would we have Miiverse 2, a camera on the console, Street Pass 2, messaging, friends invites, video chat, a theme shop, activity logs, backwards compatibility, etc. Or would Nintendo have always been Nintendo in some ways and not continued many of these things? Something I kind of touched about before, just like with like the Nintendo Islands and stuff I mentioned before in the previous video. It's a tough argument, really, in terms of what Nintendo might have carried over as the DS and the Wii generation ended with the demise of the Wii U. The Wii U being fully backwards compatible with the Wii and having all these things. But we can also still gain some insight into losing these things during those times as Nintendo closed down all the online functions of the Wii. This is still the digital and online fear of the console market. Vastly more so than the PC market. But I do find myself lamenting all these lost additional features. And even though the Switch software-wise has been great, the loss of these features has clearly affected my love towards the machine, to the point where its software library kind of isn't enough anymore for me to call it a truly great system. Which is odd, like I said, because it should always be about the games. But we're in a different age now, and gaming has gone beyond just having a machine that simply does nothing but play video games. As many of us have said before, we have to hold these companies to their previous standards. And what they offered, and it's hard to think of many big companies who strip out so much that they previously offered, yet charge you more, arguably for less. I mean, how many companies have done that? Well, at least in gaming. I love the Switch. It has some truly fantastic games, but clearly I feel, for me and for many others, the games aren't enough anymore when it comes to Nintendo hardware. Nintendo need to evolve their services and features, just as much as they evolve their games. And going back to basics, will tip many over the edge to the point where they could even leave Nintendo hardware entirely. I'm not at that point yet, but my frustrations with many things are starting to build for sure. You also, see this in the reception to the trickle of SNES and NES games on the Switch. There's only so much nostalgia and Nintendo history, and history. Sorry, Nintendo can lean on, where even that's not an incentive anymore. And the fact that the Switch started again with its library adds into the whole we're paying more for less, or paying for things we once had a choice over, or had before for free. And I just saw that Catherine Full Body, a game I own on the PlayStation 3, or at least the original Catherine, is supposedly coming to the Nintendo Switch. And this is something that falls in line with the third-party games. People are saying, yes, finally Atlas doing something for the Nintendo Switch. It's still a port of a PlayStation 3 game. If you go back and look at what Atlas released on the Nintendo 3DS, original titles, my God, it's just night and day. And don't give me that whole argument of, that is a HD system now compared to a sub-HD system. Let's not pretend that these companies can't dish out AA titles in 1080p with a half-decent 3D engine. Every company in indies have been doing this for years now. So, to get excited over a port of these recent / old PlayStation 3 games and all the other stuff, God, look at Capcom. I can't think of one original Capcom game on the Nintendo Switch. We've literally just had ports of PlayStation 2 games, Mega Drive games, whatever. Actually, I think Mega Man 11. Oh yeah, Mega Man 11. I think that's the only original Switch game Capcom have made compared to their previous titles that they've made before for Nintendo platforms. But anyway, that's going off topic. But what are your thoughts? It was a pretty long and deep conversation. I feel where I've added many layers of conversation. But for the focus points, are you happy with a games console that does virtually nothing but play games, especially compared to what previous consoles from that company, this company being Nintendo, had offered you before in services? Or do you feel that consoles in today's world need those additional features and services each generation? Especially if we've had them before, like I said, in order for you to feel content or completely content. Are the games just enough or not enough? Let me know your thoughts, people. I reply to everyone. Thanks for listening. Take care all, and peace.
Presenting the champions of the circuit. In third place, Ryota Hayami. In second place, Ricky Winterbourne. In first place, Akari Hayami. Congratulations, champions!